Jason Manningham, CEO of Blockgraph, joins the ADOTAT Show to explain why household identity actually matters, why zip codes are lazy, and how the TV data pipes got so clogged that everyone started calling leaks features. We talk proximity over personas, attribution cosplay, and why AI won't fix TV until it understands the real world exists. This one's about infrastructure, not hype.
Do it. I'm Pesach Lattin, this is the ADOTAT Show. Today we got Jason Manningham, CEO of Blockgraph, a man unplugging TV's data pipes while everyone else insists the leaks are part of the features. He's here to talk about local advertising that isn't just plumbers and pizza shops, the real truth about household identity and why industry keeps confusing buzzwords with infrastructure. First of all, most important question today, how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
Thank God, I'm doing really well. Because we get to jump right into the volcano. Everyone keeps parroting that local advertising is just mom and pop shops.
Yeah.
Well, you're out here saying actually local is where the real money is and the real data lives. It's like you're revealing the secret menu at In-N-Out. Why is local the most understood, undervalued, and criminally neglected frontier in all of TV?
Well, so I have to be honest, when I first got into the industry, I came in through digital video and specifically a lot of the Adtech paths that many of your audiences are also coming from. Programmatic, digital video ad serving, and whatnot coming from freewheel. So I had underappreciated the importance and the complexity and the value of the local market. And it's really something that I've learned over the last several years in working at Blockgraph, supporting a lot of the pay TV distributors. What's different about local is that it is not just an advertiser who's looking to build a brand across the entire country. The dollars are both vast. So we have a market that's 170 billion in the US, the local advertising market. So that's bigger than TV as a whole. It's 2 times the size of the TV advertising market. If you look at local writ large, a lot of the local dollars are both from the mom and pops, the regional agencies, but then also a lot of big brand retailers and QSR companies and even political who need to deliver specific markets in specific communities. So they need to tailor their advertising to drive the same things that a national advertiser would, big brand and actual performance. So local is both bigger than people understand. They have the same complex needs in terms of targeting. They want to be efficient, and the industry has neglected them for far too long.
So you've also said local is misunderstood. What do you specifically mean? Do you mean like misunderstood like a teenage boy with a Megadeth poster? Or do you mean like an analyst who thinks geo-context means zip codes?
Yeah, so it's a good point. I think both. I think they are misunderstood in the fact that people...
Yeah, you've all been misunderstood at conferences.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot of people think that it is a unsophisticated, old school legacy media buyer or media seller in local. And that's just frankly not true. Some of the smartest people I've met in the industry are focused on local advertising, both in terms of as an advertiser, as an agency, but then also on the sell side. So I think that's one point. But bigger than that, geo-targeting is much more advanced today than it was even a couple of years ago. Geo currently is that, as most people think about it, it's a zip code. A zip code is fine, but it's very broad. You have 100,000 plus households on average within a zip code. And if you're an advertiser, you want to be more specific. You want to reach neighborhoods that are within a certain number of miles of your store. And we've found that the number one performance indicator for a lot of these local advertisers is, are you hitting households that are within 3 miles of your store locations? That actually will drive a better result than trying to be hyper targeted with audiences that are imprecise and becoming less accurate with cookie deprecation and signal loss. Anyway.
Eric Troutman, the czar of the TCPA, isn't just the guy you call when your phone rings too much. He's the guy you must call. Need to navigate the legal minefield of robocalls, texts, and telemarketing nightmares? Troutman doesn't just give you advice. He hands you a roadmap, a compass, and a do not press this button sign. Practical? Yes. Actionable? Absolutely. And if you're not calling him first, let's be honest, you're probably making a mistake.
So
I
can you give
think
me like a concrete example of a national advertiser who's actually using local data smarter than everyone else?
yeah, so this is a regional advertiser, but it will drive home the point. So we worked with a home goods service provider. So think of them as like a furniture retailer and a local media seller to do two things. We wanted to target people within their communities, within a certain proximity to stores. And then we wanted to measure the sales lift on the back end of actually, did that campaign drive the results that I expected it to with a TV buy. So mostly a TV CTV buy in this case. And that advertiser was being very smart around geofencing, not just a zip code, but they were looking for proximity within 3 miles of their stores, and then a certain demographic profile for those households and those individuals. Then on the back end, they measured the results and found that it drove significant ROAS. I think it was over $10 ROAS, or 100 or 1,000% for the actual ads that they bought for that campaign. So significant ROAS, better than a lot of their digital buys. And then they were really primarily anchoring to a precise geofence of households that were clustered around their stores.
Well, interesting. Listening to these stories, how did the industry become so fixated on like the bottom funnel tactics that they forgot like the entire middle
Yeah.
of the customer journey actually exists?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think there's been two kind of
Really, I partially blame Google, let's be honest.
Yeah, of course. Google definitely trained on last click attribution, and they have a very powerful product and a very powerful set of data that actually helps drive performance at the bottom of the funnel. Same thing with social and Meta and all the players in that world.
Yeah, I heard, and I think I read like 2 days ago that a former analyst at Google has come out and said that the whole analytics and attribution of Google was complete junk.
It's entirely possible. I think,
and that's it. That makes it really interesting to me. Like you basically, Errors Living said that the whole attribution system of Google is junk. The whole last click was always a fraud. And I was like,
yeah.
We knew this, but thank you for telling us.
It's kind of one of these things where there's an incentive to make your media look, and it's not just Google. It's really any media seller is going to want to show the value.
No one dresses their media kit to look like junk.
It's just Google just happened to have a better position within the industry, better data, more ad spend share. So they tend to get beat up on it. I'm in no means trying to justify showing false reporting.
Oh, yeah, when you're at the top, everyone wants to be there. Yeah,
exactly. Yes,
it's still to be king for a while, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in terms of the top and middle of the funnel, legacy media and mostly TV was built on reach and trying to build brands over time. And then you've had digital media, which has been hyper focused on driving performance. And I think when TV saw their share decline, the traditional media companies, they really quickly ran to this bottom funnel. And you're seeing that play out in the last 18 months, where a lot of the traditional media companies are launching their own ad managers and going after direct to consumer spend. They're putting pixels on pages, and they're launching a self-service DSP, Roku's of the world, Universal Ads, TV Scientific, Vibe. There's a ton of people chasing what I would call performance TV dollars, and they're focused on driving conversions through video, through CTV, and taking credit for the attribution of driving web visits or e-commerce sales. And then you still have the traditional media companies, and now Google is playing in the top of the funnel with YouTube. So you're kind of seeing them bifurcate on these two areas. What people haven't really done is, how do you take those people who are exposed and then move them to performance? Because you don't just get exposed one time and then go make a website purchase the next day. If you're a consumer, just think about your own behavior.
If last touch attribution worked, your waiter would get full credit for the meal. We make sure the chef gets credit too. Incremental.
You really need to be thinking about, how do you reach people that are like your audience, in the communities that are like your audience, and neighborhoods that are like your audience, and move them down the funnel. So I think people haven't really paid attention to the importance of proximity and geography and neighborhood context, as opposed to just hyper-targeted audience, which is, I think it was TrueSet came out with a study recently that 13% of IP targeting is accurate and 87% is inaccurate.
Right.
I think if you're audience targeting, you're already
Wasn't backwards?
Yeah, you would think it would be backwards. No, it's 13% accurate. 13% of IP.
Yeah, I didn't report on that, but when I saw that, I had him call him. I was like, I think you guys like mixed the numbers up, right?
I would have thought.
And they're like, no, that was actually the real numbers.
Yeah, those are the real numbers. And we see it as having supported ISPs as our core customers. IP matching is really bad unless you have a deterministic anchor, which very few people do. But I think it's interesting because everyone's focused on hyper audience targeting, and yet it's so inaccurate. So isn't there more we can do with more contextual geo signals like census data and figuring out this neighborhood block tends to have this percentage of people within a certain income profile, family status, has kids, doesn't have kids. And I think that those signals are being neglected at the community level. And I think they actually drive better performance than these hyper-targeted audience signals.
So we're just going to go from one misunderstood thing to something completely misunderstood, which is, I guess, identity.
Yeah.
The TV kind, the household kind, and the kind that I think everyone's lying about.
Yeah.
So what part of a TV identity do people consistently screw up? Is it the household piece, the data stitching, or the fact that households are monolithic blobs watching the same thing and matching pajamas?
That's a good question. I would say the first thing that people get misunderstood is the level of granularity of identity based on the platform. So if you're in a mobile platform or you're trying to do mobile advertising, it's an individual that you should be targeting to because it's an individual's device. If you're in open web, it's usually also an individual. Unfortunately, people are assuming that TV is an individual. It's not. The television screen is a shared screen, and therefore it is a household. Even when someone is logged in to an email on a CTV streamer, it's often a shared email for that account, and it's shared amongst the people who are living in that house, and on average.
Yeah, we don't really use the... Like we set up, but we don't watch any TV. We sometimes use Kindle or iPad to watch, something. So, but we've never set it up for Netflix has the kid account and the adult account because we're the one who always logs in to all the accounts. And then we choose if we want them to watch Nat Geo or something. Yeah. And that's our choice. And of course the identity graph or whatever's being used thinks that I am both 12 years old and 50. Right. And a woman, and it's absolutely insane because I get a lot of Spanish ads, Spanish language ads. Yeah, I think as do. I'm in Phoenix. I'm not sure where the ISP is. The ISP, when you look at my IP, it might be in a heavily Hispanic area. Yeah, it might be because my wife teaches in a heavily Hispanic area and her phone goes there. I have no idea, but I get a ridiculous amount of and it's everything from immigration to just car ads in Spanish. And it's a little this shows a perfect example of how it doesn't work. But I bet you they're selling it as hyper targeted to me. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting when you say that. It brings up a point that comes to my mind, which is there's different thresholds of targeting, and when it comes to language, you really want to make sure that if you're choosing a language for the ad, you want to be hyper confident and hyper accurate in that. I don't understand because you can choose the language on. That's what I never understand is that you get to choose the language on the app, and yet I constantly get. And so it has to be some sort of resold to the IP, the zip code, or the ISP is heavily Hispanic or whatever. And and someone bought that, and it is clearly just poorly targeted. And I get that same one over and over then for the next day, and then it disappears. Because I ran out of money. The person's $10,000 budget ran out, and it's so I'm never going to use that company again. Though. What's fascinating about that point is in that case that person wasted their money most likely, or that advertiser wasted their money. Usually for a small company of 2 people, if they burn through 5 people a month, that's not bad, and that's what people do. On aggregate, they're CTV experts, they're CTV resellers. They can burn through those.
But if they had targeted you, maybe in a grocery store that was oriented towards Spanish-speaking audiences, and maybe you learn about a new product, that may not be as bad in that case. Maybe you're like, oh, maybe I want to go check out that place. It looks like they have.
Like, I actually want to know where to buy chayote squash. I love chayote squash, and it's actually really hard to find, even with all the apps. So I always assume if there was like a new, but I would still need that. And shamefully, even though I'm of Hispanic heritage, my wife speaks Spanish fluently. I do not.
Yeah. Well, So I think there's all kinds of nuance, and it is not a one size fits all when it comes to identity. And I think that's you're kind of drawing the points out natively with our conversation. The other thing that's misunderstood about identity is how it can and should be used. So the first thing is everyone thinks about identity for targeting, which is true. Like, you want to know who someone is or which household you're reaching to target the right ads. But that's actually not necessary. There's a lot of great targeting you can do with context, with quality of the content, with all geo, like we were talking about earlier. And we find that actually most advertising is still loosely targeted, not at the ID level. It's still based on context, quality of content, geo, and a bunch of other factors.
Yeah, I don't really get on CTV especially. I don't get a lot of ads that fill, except from Amazon. I have to be honest. Fill, and it's partially because I have Amazon Prime and it's all connected. But again, that makes the whole point. Again, to why Amazon is superior to everyone else in many ways.
Well, they definitely have a data advantage, unquestioned.
But I don't get it. But I'm on Hulu, and I love the Hulu platform. I love Disney. I love the whole thing. I don't get ads that are really targeted to me, and I don't. But the other places, obviously, now Amazon knows what my car is.
Yeah,
because when you log in, you can now choose what your car is. So I actually get ads that are targeted to buy that car again. It's amazing.
And I think
on Hulu, I get ads for tampons quite often, actually.
It's probably content. I don't know what you're watching, but certainly could be geared towards a certain genre and demo.
I'm gonna give you time to. I want to actually give you time to pump Blockgraph before we go on.
Sure, yeah.
How big of a difference does correct household identity actually make to planning, measurement, attribution? You can give me the before Blockgraph plumbing and the after Blockgraph plumbing, or the after Blockgraph Drano comparison. It's just too bad.
Yeah, Drano, liquid Drano.
And I think, did you call yourself once Drano for TV identity?
Yeah. So honestly, the code name Blockgraph started as a incubation skunkworks project within Comcast, and we spun it out to the joint venture state. And the code name at the time was Project Data Drano.
This was actually no underwords, and so you actually this metaphor is not my fault. Okay.
No. We actually had this because the plumbing was all clogged at the time in terms of the data ecosystem. So pre-Blockgraph, there were really two ways that one would think about identity. It would be a device graph with IPs and digital device IDs as signals that people would try to probabilistically guess the associations thereof. And then there were PII onboarders, but it wasn't really connected to digital media. And that was because you really had the direct mail world, and then you had the digital world, and there was no connection between the two of them. Blockgraph really saw its role in the industry as acting as the bridge between the offline world and the online world. And the way we built our ID was to create a universal household view that each company we onboarded into our ecosystem could connect their device graph to. So if you're an ISP like a Comcast or a Spectrum, you have 30-ish million households each. You know the address, but then you also know the IPs associated with those households because you're the ISP. You might know device IDs, you might know emails. A publisher might have emails associated with some device IDs, and an advertiser might have another sliver of that. But essentially, we wanted to allow everyone's device graph to be their device graph, but create this connector between different device graphs that is the Blockgraph ID and the software for these device graphs to talk to one another in a privacy compliant, permissioned, secure way. So we get often thought about as a hybrid between a clean room and an ID, and that's a fair way to think about us. We are both the software and the universal ID that connects these pipes between partners.
So if you had to bet your next year's salary, and I don't know as a founder if you take one, I've heard some don't, on a single identity market.
Wish I couldn't, but unfortunately, I got a kid, and there's.
I wasn't actually asking.
Yeah, it's all good. Everyone can know. Yeah.
On a single identity model winning CTV, which one wins, or do we have to live forever in a glorious, chaotic multiverse? And you're allowed to use both Marvel and DC analogies. Why that word was hard.
Yeah.
Because I obviously appreciate.
I'll try to do both. So within the Marvel world, look, I think we're going to be in a multiverse, undoubtedly, just because you have different, it's almost like religion with people in terms of how they think about identity. You have certain...
Are you Doctor Strange or what? Doctor Doom? I think that's how it's turning out in this. I think I read CBR or something.
Yeah.
Some free.
I'd like to think so, but I might be closer to Thor. We'll see.
You're like Thor. Which Thor though? Fat Thor?
Probably Fat Thor.
Fluff Thor?
Maybe somewhere in between.
Our Lady Thor.
Well, you never know.
It turns out I thought that was like something they made up. It turns out 1976 there was a Thor where they actually asked. It's like one of these old Marvel comics where it's like, what if? I think it's called.
Yeah.
And like, what if Thor became what her name was, the girlfriend. So it's actually part of the dogma, the actual,
the canon.
Yeah. It's pretty. I thought that was crazy. I thought the movie was kind of dumb.
Yeah. So
I think it ruined the director's reputation. He ever got a movie out, he was like supposed to do like another Wakanda movie or something.
Interesting.
Like after seeing, sorry, we'll move on. We actually have limited time.
So look, I think we're going to be in a multiverse because it's religious and kind of dogmatic in many ways. People think that it's an individual and they're just unwilling to bend on that. And then there are some who view TV as a household. And I think we're going to be living in those two parallel universes for quite some time.
So in 10 years, will identity be invisible infrastructure or the centerpiece of everything?
I hope that it's invisible and the centerpiece, meaning...
Invisible centerpiece. That's not a centerpiece ever in anything else I've done.
I guess the invisible connective tissue between all platforms and all media. I hope invisible in the sense we'd stop talking about it so much. I think it should ultimately...
Just accepted, like IP addresses.
Yeah, I think...
More useful.
Yeah, more useful, more accurate, but also
It's strange because, of course, 20 years ago, we never doubted IP addresses.
Yeah, I know.
IP addresses were we went into double clicking. These are godsend, the IP address. We can target by IPs.
They're fine when you stop trying to tie them to offline data. Like, honestly, they're okay if you're looking at them in the terms of, even broad.
Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly. But when you try to tie it to a person who bought something offline, forget online, because you might be able to connect it with an e-com purchase, but 80% of purchases still exist in the real world. That's where people were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So we'll see. We'll see. But I certainly think it'd be fun.
I've written about TV currency and measurement, and at some points, I sometimes realize I think I get it, and then at some points, I still really don't get it. Because the measurement landscape looks like the Hunger Games, except everyone bought spreadsheets instead of like a boat. But you're bullish on outcomes, household ID, and the new 3 currency feature. Yeah. So what is the single biggest myth about TV measurement that drives you absolutely insane? And what's the 3 currency feature?
So I think currency is what is ultimately traded on, but what is actually bought and where the implicit value of media is, does it drive a performance outcome for that brand? And that's when we talk about outcomes measurement. What lift is this generating, whether it's website lift or purchase lift or even consideration lift through some surveys that are being run? That is the ultimate outcome that an advertiser is trying to drive towards. It's hard to quantify that across hundreds of advertisers if you're an agency negotiating with a big media company. Hence why we need currency, which is in my opinion, should just be impressions, which is how many ads were delivered to which households, unique households. So unique household impressions is ultimately the currency that should bind people across platforms. I think there was probably a little bit of a rush to try to be a currency because everyone saw Nielsen as the king of the industry. And there's probably a little overinvestment, candidly, in currency as a whole. And measurement and outcome, more broadly speaking, I think is where there was room for innovation. And you've seen companies build really interesting niches like the TV squared Innovids with the web lift attribution. You've got Kochava playing an interesting role as it relates to app downloads. You've got Polk in the auto sales measurement world. So there's a lot of different boutique measurement companies, and they probably wouldn't like being called boutique, but verticalized niche that I think are adding a ton of value to the industry. But you probably don't need hundreds of currencies. You probably need one or two. And I think that that's ultimately where we're starting to, I think, sort out at this point.
So what part of the measurement industry do you think is still the earliest? Data access, identity, or the collective emotional maturity of everyone? Well, let's be honest, the emotional maturity is low across all ad tech categories.
Yeah. So let's take that as a given across all media, and then we'll naturally say, I think it's data access. To be honest, that's why retail media has been really interesting, because they have the closed loop data to both target and then measure performance within the sale. But again, these walled gardens are still confined. So Amazon, as powerful as Amazon is, still cannot get access to the other retailer sales data in most cases, where as big as Amazon is, they're probably still accounting for 15% of total commerce in the US through Amazon. They're still 85% offline, and then other e-com, that's really small, offline and real stores where Amazon doesn't see that data. So you're never going to have access to all of the data necessary to do the measurement. That's why I think clean rooms have taken the role that they have, which is they act as the way for multiple data sets to come together and everyone can feel more confident on the data access side. So I think that data access will never be 100% centralized. And hence the need for collaborative tests.
Okay, so what's preventing this from scaling? Is it technology, lawyers, fragmentation? Or everyone has their own little fiefdom. Let's try to say that twice. It's like a therapy session.
Fiefdom. There we go. So I think it's not lawyers, because I think the privacy regulations have become clearer, and I think they're steadying, and people have developed processes and tech even to accomplish the privacy requirements and obligations. I actually think it is truly a matter of incentives. And if you're building something, it's much easier to build a closed loop solution than it is to build a federated data solution. So I think from a time to market perspective and simplicity perspective, people are just building out closed loops for their view of the world, their media, their purchase, their impression. That only take it so far. So I think you'll see a couple more federated solutions. We've been focused in on the federated for local advertiser ecosystem, which has a lot of opportunity.
So if I told you, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
If I told you half the attribution dashboards out there are basically cosplay, pretty charged with actually no causal rigor, would you agree or demand an apology? And we can both apologize after it's all fixed.
Yeah, look, I think that a lot of them are at best half right. And I think that's a factor, two things.
I just took one of my cars in to get fixed. If it came back with half the tires,
look,
I would be pretty upset. Or it was half fixed, because it's costing me $2,000. Is that 4-year mark?
Look, I think that the challenge with measurement is it's really hard, unless you're willing to invest a lot of money, to get a full view of the marketing picture and which media impressions drive which results. There are multi-touch attribution solutions that exist. They're just very complex and require a lot of data science and significant investment. Not every
We all agree it's very fuzzy.
in those cases, it's, I would say, statistically relevant and a little bit fuzzy. But I would say those companies are actually trying really hard in the multi-touch attribution to be accurate and to be objective and to try to drive a better awareness of the spend and the impact of the spend on results. I think that every walled garden can only see its own view. So even if they're being accurate with the data they see, they might be missing data they don't see and what the impact that has on the actual performance. So, I think it's just a matter of trying to get the best view you can if you're a marketer, and to simplify the number of platforms that you're working with, because then you can trust the measurement a lot better if you're working with fewer and fewer partners.
So it's 2000 Trump years president.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
I'm not touching that one. I'm not touching that one.
And it just hit me. I'm going to have to edit the joke out because YouTube won't promote anything remotely political.
Yeah.
I have to remember to actually do that. So it's 2030. If I don't remember, I have to remind my AI to actually edit this, which if I say it, it will. What does the currency trinity look by 2030, and who wins the measurement throne?
Okay. So it's 2030. I think it's certainly going to be 2 or 3 currency providers and a whole host of outcomes providers that are verticalized. So
Right.
What I believe will happen is I think you'll have 1 or 2 players, probably Nielsen and Comscore or Video M, to be honest, in those 3 that will likely be in the currency contender race, given the investment and the granular level of data access they've been able to source. And then I think there will be a lot of very interesting outcomes measurement providers that are all filling an interesting role for a different vertical. You'll have some for auto, some for CPG, some for retail, some for QSR, some for mobile phones, and each of these companies will be really verticalized in the solutions they offer, because you'll have to go deep in those ad verticals to be successful in providing measurement. So I think it'll be a clearer view of where we are today. The best companies, though, will be layering on AI, like real AI, to actually recommend insights and make optimizations based on the measurement. So I don't think it will be actually a world where it's humans reading reports. The humans will be informed of insights. They'll double check it. But I do think we're entering a world pretty rapidly, in a world where agents are analyzing data and making recommendations.
But everyone is still chanting, AI is changing advertising like it's some cult retreat in Sedona. And I know, I'm just like, you're Sedona.
Yeah.
So let's accept this. You have said that AI isn't about hyper-targeting and general creative. It's about how identity unlocks the future possibilities. And I agree with that. So, but what do you think is the most overhyped, completely misguided belief about AI and TV today?
I don't think creative generation is going to get us where we need to go. And that's where you're seeing, because it's a parlor trick in a lot of ways to be able to give us.
I'm not sure a lot of it's AI. Again, I think it's piggybacking on, a lot of this is, and I've over and over again, I found this, it's piggybacking on the enormous CPU clouds that exist now. You know, you used to buy rack space, your own little rack, and you buy 100. Now they need entire blocks. And I see these blocks, even in Phoenix, I've seen them in Vegas. And by blocks, you mean 10 by 10 miles of electricity and servers.
Yeah.
And they're talking about building, nuclear plants to be able to do it. And it's so cheap right now. So a lot of it isn't AI. It may be AI power or AI sprinkled upon it, which Ann Coughlin said about AI. But
I think there's a lot of Gen AI creative. To your point, it's probably a hybrid approach, right? In terms of the way the neural networks are interfacing with just more traditional algorithms.
Right.
But I think
a lot of it is you have an LLM on top.
Yes.
Of the other system. Right. So it feels more natural, or sometimes it argues with you that you can't do something completely legit because it's wrong.
Yeah.
Because now your Photoshop has personality, which makes no sense, but we'll go with that.
So look, I think that's where everyone's investing right now, is trying to automate creative. I think that's the part where humans are actually still, and I'm not saying AI will not get to a point where it's creative. It will probably. I don't know the time frame for that to actually happen. But in the next 5 years, I would bet humans still have a lot of value in the creative process. Where I think people are not paying attention to, AI is trained on online data, digital data.
Right.
It's amassing, it's scraping the web, pulling in data, pulling in all types of information from publishers and aggregators and community social sites like Reddit, for example, to train the algorithms to predict the next word or to predict semantics. What the AI algos have not sufficiently been trained on is the real world and what's happening in the real world and the data
Because
associated.
the internet isn't the real world.
Correct. The internet
It
is
is
not
how
the real
it
world.
is what people want to present, and in many cases, it's very real to who they are. There's an argument that Instagram may be teenagers' real lives, but we also see people with the cameras out there dancing and stuff, and we know that's not what they do on a day-to-day basis. But if, according to the AI, every single teenager spends 24/7 dancing
That's right. And I
or
think
watching cats.
and a lot of the real decisions around purchases, just bringing it back to our industry and advertising, are made in real life. Like you're not always on your phone or your desktop when you make a purchase. It might hit you when you're walking to work or out on a bike ride and you're like, oh, I need to go get this bike. Or maybe you see a neighbor's car in real life and you're like, oh, that looks really nice. When I'm in market next year, I might want to actually.
Yeah, we can't buy a bike online. We have kids that are going to grow and, you buy a certain bike online, it's perfect for that size. It's going to be useless in 6 months. But we didn't know that until we went to the store and they say, you need to get this type of bike because it actually adjusts, and they'll get a full year, and then you'll spend another $500. But, you can't help it. They're growing.
Yeah, no, I mean,
you have to give them shoes and clothes and all that and feed them.
We bought our bike 2 sizes up last time because
That makes sense, right?
they're expensive. So we're like, all right, kid, learn to stand while you pedal. And it'll be all good. So, I think that the interesting part of the next 5 years will be who's able to connect the real world to the digital world. And the household is really an interesting way to do that because people they consume the internet in their household, but then their household is part of a real neighborhood, a real community, and you can find information about that real community. So it really acts as the bridge between the digital and the physical world. And we're super interested to explore that over the next 5 years.
So, as I always mention, I have no idea who Esther Perel is. I have to Google this now.
She's a therapist. She's a therapist.
Okay.
A famous celebrity therapist.
I'm actually going to ask ChatGPT. Oh, Belgium. Okay. Oh, she's a TED talker.
Yeah. She's
Born to Holocaust survivors. Anyways, we'll have to cut that out anyways. We'll figure it out in this part. So, you're stuck in a desert island. Actually, this is the favorite part of my show where I get to stick you in a desert island. And this time I'm going to stick you with your wife. And I'm sorry for your son, Anthony Bourdain, who, let's just be honest, may not be able to actually contribute much. Charles Barkley, but okay, we'll make him back alive because I actually knew him. Charles Barkley and Esther Perel. We'll talk. So Anthony Bourdain, real fast. I was very lucky that his restaurant was down the street from where I had my first office on 22nd and Broadway. So we crossed paths all the time. And I used to go to a little bar that he would have lunch with all the time. We'd sit and talk. Long story short.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, my first office was 928 Broadway, which wasn't far from his steak place. 22nd and Broadway. So, who becomes the benevolent dictator of the island? Who snaps first? And who starts a Lord of the Flies side hustle?
Okay, so I'm going to go with number 1. I think the dictator is probably Charles Barkley. Charles is a charismatic guy. He's always got jokes. He's tall. There's
and he always pushes to the hoop. He's always driving.
Yeah,
he doesn't care who's in front of him.
Look, I think. Sorry, what was the second one that you said?
Your wife?
Your
son.
So Jonah's gonna at least at some point take over the island, but it just matters.
Okay. How old is he now?
He's 7 right now. So
he's already taken over your apartment, I assume. You're in Manhattan? You already said you're in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we're in Brooklyn, but he's definitely taking over our house, and he's got a lot of opinions on a lot of items already. He's 7 going on 7.
Do you have steam heating?
No, we actually have electric, which I don't recommend.
Okay.
Very expensive in the winter. We have a
No one
higher
knows. A lot of people don't know the joy of steam heating, especially that it doesn't always work and it's noisy.
Yeah, no, I like it a little bit because it's very efficient and your apartment gets nice and toasty. It's a New York experience. But no, we're electric now. So, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The reason I'm happy about this, I've got someone who's going to crack me up in Charles Barkley and who I can play basketball with. I've got someone who can cook for us in Bourdain. My wife, who's my partner in crime, and then my son, who is a very fun and amazing kid to be around. And then Esther Perel, when things go badly, we need someone to talk it out with.
She also might want to ask you. I'm not going to do this in an accent from Belgium because I have no idea. They're French, right? So I could do a French accent. They speak French. She probably ask you why you stuck her on that island. Like, what kind of psychopath takes a therapist to an island? Like, why am I on this island, dude?
She might be a little upset, but I think.
But she's like, you had a choice.
We need someone. We need someone to keep us honest.
Yeah. It was on the fly. A wizard said you have 5 people, and you just like randomly pick 5 people. You had no choice. So, anyways, describe the first argument that breaks out on day 3. My money is Barkley critiquing Bourdain's knife techniques.
It's a good choice. I think that Bourdain and Barkley are going to get in a fight over which Euro place is the best and which white sauce place is the best in New York City, because Charles loves his street meat in New York. So I think they're going to...
Could this be like reality TV on Max? HBO Max? Sorry, I think it's so fast.
It'd be a good show for sure. Let's bring him back from the dead, resurrect him, and I think we'll have a good show on our hands. AI could help with that.
I did. What was it? Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah. I was thinking AI resurrection. No. Let's bring back virtual Bourdain, not physical Bourdain.
What do you think this very weird team dynamic, let's make that clear, would reveal about your leadership style? Would you delegate, collaborate, or quietly seize power? But you already made it clear that your kid is like at 8 to become a dictator.
Yeah, look, he's. I think I'm a pretty collaborative guy, and you have to be in the role that I am, working in a joint venture with multiple industry partners who compete in many cases. So it's about trying to find the win-win-win across the board, which is hard. So I would hope to apply the same thing.
So Investor Perel started mediating conflicts using a fair dynamics playbook. Would the island run smoother or descend into chaos faster? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, descend into chaos faster, of
now
course.
It's both. Both.
Yeah. And smoother. Yeah, I guess chaos will help bring us to good order quickly.
So the rescue boat arrives. Other than bang Bourdain for one last meal, what's the first thing that you do?
On the island.
Because honestly, being stranded on desert island with Bourdain, he makes something amazing out of anything.
Yeah, he's definitely cooking.
So,
I think the first thing I'm doing is, while everyone has energy, I'm chopping down a tree so we can have enough wood to build a boat at some point, before people get too tired and cranky.
So now we're mentally stranded. Let's turn the spotlight directly onto you, the human being behind this CEO. You've said that your industry Yoda is John Heller, who taught you not to take advertising too seriously and to tune out the noise. Something I learned very recently, to be absolutely honest. Wisdom in this industry desperately needs this tattooed on everyone's forehead. So what's the earliest moment in your career when you realized the noise was louder than the signal, and how did it shape your path?
Yeah. So the first thing that I can remember around noise was the fact that the big walled gardens were going to eat everyone's lunch, and everyone was going to go out of business in a matter of a couple of years. This was probably 10 to 12 years ago at this point. And we've certainly...
For those that don't know, and I assume everyone knows who John Heller is, he's the founder of Freewheel.
Yep.
He has his own AI company now, which is Firsthand, I want to say.
Yeah, so John was a very valuable mentor to me. He's highly technical guy, but he also is able to connect things to the big picture and to the customers really well. Very loyal, very, very hard worker, and also very generous with his time. So overall, one of the great blue flame thinkers in ad tech that I don't think people appreciate nearly enough. He was also early DoubleClick and has been around the industry for quite some time. And we'll see what he does with Firsthand, but certainly some really interesting products that they're launching. In terms of that factor, we're still 10 years in, and the walled gardens, while they have grown, also have more walled gardens they're competing against. So I think it's really important to realize you have to play to get to the next round with any company that you're building. You're not going to go from 0 to 100 overnight. You really need to just keep playing, win the hand so that you can play another hand. And I think just tuning out the noise and focusing on what you can control, adding some value along the way, having a big picture idea of where you want to go, but staying really focused on this year, this quarter is something that it takes some time to build towards, because it's easy to get lost in the ad exchanger or echo chambers of online and think, oh my God, all these companies are succeeding so fast. But that's a way that people present themselves in their companies, not necessarily the truth of what's happening. So
he also valued macro trend focus and clarity of product vision. How has that affected you?
Well, I think you always have to have a North Star. You always have to predict where the industry is going, because you could build a great product for yesterday's problem, but if that problem doesn't exist in a year or 2 years, you're not going to be able to sell it to the solution to too many people. So you really have to think about where the industry is going, where the technology, how technology is reshaping.
So you've said the industry overfocuses on identity, reach, frequencies as if they're the 10 commandments. Why do you think Adline clings so desperately to the past instead of building the future for identity unlocks? Building the future of identity unlocks. I'm not even sure that's right, but what do you think?
Things are locked for sure, so why not unlock them? Look, I think people continue to focus on reach and frequency because that's what they know, and it does matter. The number of times you show a person an ad matters. It matters in not annoying them and in actually driving results. But that's not ultimately the only signal that companies need to be thinking about. They need to be thinking about geography. They need to be thinking about neighborhood context. They need to be thinking about person context, and then also looking at what results we're actually generating. That creates a more rich picture of what influences the path to purchase, and ultimately identity should be touching every single one of those parts, not just measuring reach and frequency. That's just such a small sliver of what it needs to do for an advertiser.
So if you could go back in time and give your 25-year-old self one brutally honest piece of advice about ad tech, what would it be, and why isn't buy Bitcoin and run?
Well, Bitcoin, NVIDIA, but probably want to sell it today. Buy Bitcoin, buy NVIDIA, run, and go retire. Don't be afraid to start something. Everyone who jumps into building a business has no idea what they're doing. Don't wait too long. Just get started.
Right.
You'll figure it out along the way. Be disciplined. But the number one thing is you are just as smart as everyone else in the industry, and don't mistake opinion for knowledge.
And my last question is, what do your kids think you do?
So my son never watched ads growing up because we limited screen time, and also we were Netflix subscribers during the pandemic, so he didn't watch ads. Now that he's into sports, he sees a lot more ads. So he actually has a good sense. I think he thinks that I make the ads like show up on the TV, like I plug something in and make the ad show up on the TV. But he does have a good sense that dad is in ads on TV, and he complains when he gets a bad ad. So,
It's your fault, Dad.
It's Dad, come on, man.
Can't you tell him to stop this?
Yeah. He's like, stop showing me so many darn betting ads on at 7 p.m. on a game night.
I stopped betting when I was 5.
Yeah. Good.
And the hardest part is we get everyone to dance, which everyone really is scared.
So we're dancing now?
Yeah, if it actually works.
That's a wrap. Huge thanks to Jason Manningham of Blockgraph for coming on and calmly explaining why local TV, household identity, and measurement aren't broken by accident. This was plumbing, not vibes, and we needed it. And as always, this episode exists because of our sponsors. Troutman Amin LLP, the lawyers you want when Adtech deals get strange, complicated, or quietly risky. Incremental.com, because outcomes matter more than dashboards. Lift beats vibes, and proof beats promises. This is the ADOTAT Show. Stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday.